Rabbi.
Let's go. Okay, so what I wanted to do in this, in the share today, is really to look and see how Hashem engages with Moshe after this terrible thing that happened that we spoke about yesterday, which had happened with the Egel Hazav. That the Egel Hazav is created, and once it's created, Bnei Israel, we saw that they they bring olot, zvachim, they bring all these korbanot into the space of the Egel Hazav, and then they eat and they drink and they just engage in completely inappropriate behavior. The way Chazal explained it, Rashi explains it, is that they do all three cardinal sins they engage in. When it says litzachek, that they started to litzachek, which means they played, that they were just completely involved in all the different things. Avodah Zorah, they could, one of the great characters, who's actually Betzalel's grandfather, he is killed because he's trying to stop the people, and you have only very few people trying to stop them. Everybody's engaging in this inappropriate behavior. And on that, the Torah says to us, Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe, that Hashem speaks to Moshe, and he says to him, Lech reid ki shechet amcha she'elita me'eretz Mitzrayim. Lech reid, go, means which is lech, to walk, reid, go down, ki shechet amcha, because your people have become like your people, have become nothing. They've completely debased themselves. That you brought up from Eretz Mitzrayim. So the Mefarshim, and just, often we want to go to different Mefarshim, but in this case, we have to just look at Rashi, because Rashi shows us how to understand what is going on in this pasuk. Because this pasuk is different from many times where we see, if not all the times. There's one other place in Va'era, but where HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe, normally he says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. Hashem speaks to Moshe saying. Here it doesn't say that. Here it says, Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe. He just speaks directly to Moshe. He doesn't say saying. There's no thing. So Rashi says, Vayidaber lashon koshihu. It's a hard way of speaking to him. He speaks to him in a way that is very direct. The concept of a daber is always speaking in a very direct, very harsh way, which is in a way kind of like unfiltered. So Hashem speaks and he said straight to Moshe, Lech reid, go down. So Rashi says, what does it mean, Lech reid? Migedulatcha, from your greatness. What does it mean from your greatness? He says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Lo natati lecha gedula ela bishvilam. The only reason I gave you greatness, the only reason I made you great, Moshe Rabbeinu, is because of these chevra, because of these people, the Bnei Israel. Those are the people. You are their leader, and you are great because of who they are. And the Tanchuma tells us that at that point in time, Moshe Rabbeinu went into a chayrim of sorts. He went into a space from being this great leader. He's sitting there with the Ribbon Shel Olam. They're learning Torah. It's like unbelievable what is happening to Moshe Rabbeinu. And in one moment, everything falls apart because of what Am Yisrael did. And that really is the, I suppose, very often the role of the leader. It's those whom he leads or she leads are the ones that are going to reflect on them and who they are. So what does Hashem say? Shichet amcha, your people. Doesn't say shichet ha'am. Ela amcha, your people. Who are your people? And look, this teaches us and leads us into an understanding. Remember, there were these people that we spoke about yesterday, the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav are these masses that somehow joined Bnei Israel. Now, if we look back into the whole story of Bnei Israel leaving, nowhere does it say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said you can bring these people with. So Rashi quotes here from Shmot Rabbah, from the Midrash, says, Erev Rav shekibalta me atzmecha. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, you accepted the Erev Rav on your own. V'giyartam, and you caused them to convert. You made gear for them. V'lo nimlachta bi. You didn't come back to me with this. V'amarta, and you said, Tov sheyidbaku geirim bashchina. It's good that these originally non-Jews would come under the banner of the Shechina. Heim shichtu v'ishchitu. Those are the people that debase themselves, and those are the people that are causing others to be debased as well. And I think what Rashi is really showing something very, very powerful for us, and that is that the way he's explaining it would seem to be that Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake. That Moshe Rabbeinu, in taking it on himself to allow certain people into Bnei Yisrael without proper process, and proper process means connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and asking Hashem what He wants. Without doing that, Moshe Rabbeinu is castigated by that, and it's clear, therefore, also that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is presenting is that that's what the issue is. That when Moshe Rabbeinu is so great, he's great because he's the leader of everybody, of Bnei Israel and of this other group. And when this grouping, which he brought in on his own, falls apart, then Moshe Rabbeinu loses a certain sense of gravitas. The Da'at Zakanim says presents HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words in such a harsh way, and it's worthwhile looking. So here's HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu, telling him about what he did, what these people have done, and he says the following: Ki shichet amcha amchahem, they are your people. Ba'al korchacha, against your will, Bar Korcham, Asher Tzeitem et Mitzrayim, they came against, they did everything on force. They came out of Mitzrayim, V'hem shichatu, sheichlifu manhig. What did they do? What does it mean that they based themselves? They changed their leader. V'davar asher natati lehem, and everything I gave them, they just threw out. V'gam avru al asher amarti. And not only that, not only did they do all the things that I told them, but one specific din that I gave them, just before this happened, which was at the which in the Aseret Hadibros, which is Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel. You're not allowed to make any pesel. You're not allowed to make any graven images of any sort. Afilu l'shem shamayim, even for the sake of heaven, you're not allowed to do it. In other words, even for you to connect closer with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it was clear HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave those instructions. Those things, they've just destroyed everything. They threw everything, and they've made everything just fall apart. And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, on that, says to us, what is it? Why was it so bad? How is it that it came to be such a terrible, terrible thing? And he says, because what they did is that there were three spaces in which they went wrong. What are those three spaces? The first one is machshava. The first one is the concept of their thinking. Their thought process was completely krum. They thought that the fact is that they were told how to think, and we spoke about this concept of that we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem gives us. We've got to ask Hashem to be able to think like in the way He wants us to think, because that will be the greatest thing for our personal growth. So these people now completely took their own thoughts. Number one. Number two, dibur. Number two, they spoke. They spoke in a way that was completely inappropriate. The way they attacked Moshe, the way they said, Eile Elohecha Yisrael, this is now our God. And it's all these things of the machshava and the dibur, but ultimately, the worst thing, and that is what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, is vayishchetu lo vayizbechu lo. It's one thing to think it. It's another thing to speak it. And I think all of us in our lives, we have doubts, we have thoughts, we have concept, we have conflict. We're not really sure where we go with certain things. And the truth is, that's part of the beauty of the battle of being a person that's growing in their ruchnius, in their spirituality, in their Yiddishkeit, is because we do have all these thoughts, and we do have all these conflicting things, and sometimes we're challenged by circumstance. I know the enormous amount of death in New York initially when COVID happened. A lot of people wrote about how they were conflicted. How could Hashem do this? So that's enormous amount of thoughts, and they spoke about it. That's the dibur. That's the speech of it. But the problem is not in only the thought and the speech. The problem is, says the Orach Chaim, that when vayishchetu lo vayizbechu lo, when they bow down to the Egel Hazav, and when they brought korbanot to the Egel Hazav, Ein lecha ma'asel gadol mizeh. There's nothing greater that they could have done to really destroy everything. And in doing that, says the Orach Chaim, letzad zeh, because they did all these three things. Tashash koach Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu's power, Moshe Rabbeinu's strength with himself also started to wane. Begimel bechinot, in three ways: the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama. His nefesh, his life force, his ruach, his like his passion and his neshama, and the very essence of him connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'lo yuchal amod b'madrega rishona. He himself could no longer stand at the madrega, at the level that he was when he got the Torah, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, Lech Reid, you need to go down. You can't think that you're at that same point in time, because the pagam, the damage that this has done to you, does not allow you to be the same Moshe Rabbeinu that you were before. And so therefore, whilst it's sad that Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, and it's sad that Aaron HaKohen passes away, and there's a lot of sad things in the Meraglim and all things, the saddest part, perhaps, in the story of Moshe Rabbeinu is a man who gets to the highest level, and then through his followers, he is shot down, and he becomes a person who is not able to hold that position that he did at that point in time. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, these people that you've got to go down, you brought them up. It doesn't say you took them out of Mitzrayim. He says you brought them up. You, the one who elevated them, and in elevating them, you elevated yourselves as well. Those people have gone down. Saru maher min haderech asher tzivitim. They went quickly away from the path that you commanded them. Asu lahem egel masecha. They made this golden calf. V'yishtachavu lo v'yizbachu. They bowed down to him, and they said all these things. That this is the God that took it out of Mitzrayim. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe. And suddenly the language changes. He no longer, now Hashem's given him given him a clap, but now he says Vayomer. And the word Vayomer is a much softer word. It's a word that denotes Hashem's is speaking to him in a different way. And he says, Ra'iti et ha'amazeh. I say, Hashem, I see these people. B'nei am k'shei orefu. Hold on a second. They're an am k'shei oref. And since they're an am k'shei oref, you know what? I'm going to give a little bit of revisiting of how I need to deal with them. And now, therefore, let me give it to me. Just give me. Let me be angry with them. And I'll make you angry. What's he saying to Moshe Rabbeinu? That Moshe Rabbeinu should give God the ability, allow him to be angry. Because even though Moshe Rabbeinu is dropped from his madrigas, even though Moshe Rabbeinu is not the person that he was at this point in time right now, nonetheless, Hashem knows he is going to stand up for Bnei Israel who are an am k'shei oref. What does it mean? They're a stiff-necked people. Machzirin koshi arpam leneged mochicheim ma'anim lishma. What does it mean that we stiff-necked? Is that we turn our backs to people who are giving us tochacha, who are giving us rebuke, ma'anim lishma, and we refuse to listen. So, if that's the case, Moshe Rabbeinu, what I realize is that I want to wipe them out. I don't need them. The reason why they did what they did is not because of you only. Initially, I blamed you. It's your people. You brought them out. But you know what? It's just them. It's the type of people that they are. So let's wipe them out and let's create a new nation. And then that Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu comes. Vayachal Moshe, and Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Ribono Shel Olam and says, please, Lama Adonai, why are you getting so angry with the people? You took them out of Mitzrayim with all these things that you did. Mitzrayim will say that, you know what, Hashem took these people out in order just to kill them. And therefore, remember Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yisrael. Remember your people. Remember where these people come from. Remember their potential. Remember their roots. And if you remember their roots, you'll see that yes, they're an Am Kashei Oref. Yes, there are stiff-necked people. Yes, they don't always listen to the Musar and to the Tocha, the rebuke that you give. But when they're in the game, they become Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And therefore, Vayinachem Adonai ala ra'ah. Asher diber la'asot la'amo. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Vayinachem. He rests from Noach. He rests from the terrible thing that he was planning to bring upon to his people. And here we see the difference, where there's dibur, there's thought HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's dibur, there's the speech of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But with just one or two sentences, that Moshe Rabbeinu implores to the Rebbeinu Shalom, don't do it, because within these people, within their stiff-neckedness, is their brilliance, is their beauty. That is us, that is Am Yisrael. Let's continue tomorrow. Be'ezrat Hashem. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
much.
Rosh.